All right, we are back with another episode of The Market Has Spoken.
I'm Hersh.
And I'm Mark Jones. All right, and what are we going to talk about today, Hersh?
We're talking about wealth building and investing in real estate.
I love it. One of my favorite topics. Awesome. So let's start at the beginning. Why is real estate a good investment for anyone?
Well, for most people, real estate is a great investment because there are multiple ways to make money from that investment. Instead of just like stocks, they go up and that's how you make money. There are other benefits. And so there's a total of 4 ways that we're going to cover today.
Okay.
The 4 ways to build wealth through real estate are cash flow, appreciation, principal pay down, and depreciation.
So let's take the first one, cash flow. Talk to me about cash flow.
Yeah, so cash flow is your expenses taken away from what you're actually bringing in. So if you're bringing in $1,000 a month and your expenses equate to $800 a month, you've got $200 a month in cash flow.
Right.
And that's the return on investment for you buying that property.
And does every property cash flow like that?
Absolutely not. It depends on the market that you're in, right? I use $1,000 as an example for easy math there. But the truth is, mortgage is not going to be $800 today for just about any property in Metro Atlanta.
Right.
And your rent on average in our city is going to be at least $1,700, $1,800 for a 1-bedroom, a decent sized 1-bedroom. So your expenses will vary, but just take into consideration that it's all based on what are you bringing in and what are you sending out as a result of the expenses.
Right. So we're looking at the difference between the income coming in from rent and the expenses going out, which is your mortgage payment, your taxes, your insurance, any sort of expenses you have. You might have property management expense, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the difference, if it's positive, is a positive cash flow.
That's right. That's right. And over time, you're also going to have to build in, things that you will have to improve on. Right. So any sort of capital expenses like a new roof, new AC over time, you just want to set aside a small percentage that you're saving for when that day comes, because we all know that day comes.
It definitely does.
Right?
And usually when you least expect it.
Yes. So the gross income is in that scenario $1,000 minus $800. Yes. However, are you also saving money for the expenses when they come? So cash flow it's a spreadsheet math. It's not actually what it's going to happen, because you might have to replace a water heater, or you might have to replace a bulb or something like that, where it changes the spreadsheet math. But the spreadsheet math essentially just gives you the ability to know, is this a good investment on paper, and am I going to move forward?
Great. So it's part of your decision-making process when you're evaluating a property.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's cash flow. Let's talk about appreciation.
So in Metro Atlanta, appreciation is great. It was 8% from March 2023 to March 2024.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Which is outperforming the rest of the country, which on average is 4%.
Right. Over last 50 years or so, 4% is sort of an average if you were to average it across that time period. So you can kind of expect long-term a 4% return.
Yep.
In the short run, it goes year to year. And if you're having a good year in real estate, it can be higher than 4. And a bad year might be less than 4.
Yeah. And it's super market specific, but it's also micro market specific, right? Like a neighborhood can appreciate more because of a development that's going in, as opposed to something that is on the other side may not.
Right. So it's hyper local is what you're saying.
Yep.
So appreciation is one reason someone might actually invest in a property.
Yeah.
So not everyone's looking for simply positive cash flow.
Right.
They might buy a property that doesn't cash flow. Maybe they only pay a couple of $100 a month, but the investor is looking that as an investment in their property, because they're looking more for a long-term appreciation, because they plan on holding that for a long time.
Yeah. And there's a different type of investor that each of these metrics will speak to, right? Younger investors want to invest for the future, and they're going to bank on appreciation because they're not planning to do anything with the property today. It's 10, 20, 30 years from now. And as we know, the value of money goes down because of inflation. Over time, your property's worth more. You essentially had someone else pay for the property, which is the next part, which is principal pay down.
Okay.
What is that, Mark?
Principal pay down is when you're paying your mortgage, or you're paying it with the rent that you receive, preferably.
Yep.
You're paying down the principal slowly. So the principal pay down is that initial loan amount. Once taking interest out of it, the amount that principal is reducing every time you make a loan payment.
That's right.
And over time, that widens the gap between the market value, which hopefully is appreciating, going up, and the loan balance, which is going down.
Right.
So that differential between those two figures is your equity.
That's exactly it. And people forget about this because when you make your car payment, are you checking on the value and your balance every single day or every single month? You just look up one day and you're like, oh, wow, I've already paid off $10,000 or $15,000. Usually it's from a tenant's payments, right? So it's not necessarily your money that you pay down with. A tenant paid you, and in turn you use that money to pay down your principal balance, and you built wealth that way.
Right.
Right. And then what's the fourth, Mark?
So the last one would be depreciation. And depreciation is kind of a nuanced thing that most people don't really understand. Take us through standard depreciation on a rental property.
Standard depreciation is taking the value of the property itself, the structural value, right? You subtract land value from it, and you divide that over 27 and a half years. And that's what a normal property is going to depreciate over if you just let a CPA do the standard depreciation on it.
Okay.
Right?
And that 27 and a half year figure is something the IRS has said we can depreciate.
That's right. That's right. They think everything in a home should deteriorate over 27 and a half years. So if you buy a $270,000 property, for easy math here, you get $10,000 taken away from your gross income every single year.
Okay. So it's a benefit for an investor to be able to depreciate that part of their investment property.
Absolutely. So in essence, here's an example. If you make $100,000 a year and you get a $10,000 depreciation basis, well, for the IRS, they're only going to tax you on the 90, not the 100.
Gotcha.
So that's the reason for doing it. It's a way to shelter taxes on income.
Gotcha. And why do we want to do that?
Well, because your taxes are the biggest expense that you have.
Right.
Right. And your living expense and your tax, of course, is usually going to be the second. So if I can pay less, I can have money to go buy more real estate.
Gotcha.
It's a vicious cycle that if you get into it, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Well, I guess every wealth building course I've been to and every speaker I've listened to on wealth building talks about the velocity of money.
Yep.
Right. It's how quickly can you get your initial investment back from any investment you make so you can then take that money and make it work for you again.
Absolutely.
Right. So the depreciation gives you that money back a little at a time over 27 and a half years.
Right.
And I'd rather have a little bit of it today and a little of it next year and a little of it next year versus waiting 27 and a half years to take it, right?
That's right. That's right.
But there is something that as real estate agents, we actually can take advantage of that's even better than that.
And that is bonus depreciation. Advanced depreciation, right?
Take me through the math on this.
Yeah, so if you, in that scenario that we gave earlier, if you buy a property that's $270,000, for argument's sake, let's say the land was $20,000.
Okay.
Your basis for the structure is $250,000.
Got it.
You can do cost segregation to understand which items in that structure, which includes the windows, the tile, the carpet, the paint, microwave, stove, everything. Which of that is depreciable over 5 years, 7 years, and 15 years?
Okay.
Anything that is up to 15 years can be taken as a year one bonus depreciation.
Wow.
So there's a lot of formula on this. And by the way, we're not tax professionals, so please consult your own. Here's our disclaimer. Don't sue us.
Right.
We're speaking from our personal experience so we can sort of help you. And so when in that scenario where the structure is 250, typically the math is going to be about 25 to 30%. So about a third of the value of the structure can be taken as advanced depreciation or bonus depreciation.
In year one.
In year one.
Wow.
As opposed to having to wait for 27 and a half years to go through that. And you're going to have advanced and you're going to have the regular, right? So what you can't take in that 15-year time frame can be taken over 27 and a half years.
So you get the use of that money sooner.
Right now.
So your velocity of money is higher, it's quicker.
Absolutely.
So you can quickly take that money and turn around and invest it again.
That's right.
So you're constantly churning as money comes in, you're taking it, you're pushing it back out there in another investment to make more money.
That's right.
And the idea is to get that money to come back as quickly as possible so you can do it again.
Yeah. And if done properly, you can set up a structure where you are not paying as much in taxes because you're doing what the government wants you to do, which is provide housing. So you take the money, like you said, velocity of money, it's worth more today than it will be in 27 and a half years.
Right. So just to break that down, if you have $1 today and appreciation is 2%, which is where the government likes it to be,
Yep.
Then next year that dollar is worth 98 cents.
Yep.
Right. The year after that, it's like 2 cents less. Your dollar is shrinking if you're not doing anything with it.
That's right. If it sits in a savings account, that's horrible.
Yeah, especially at the rates that savings were for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
There are a lot of savings accounts out there now that are 5%.
Yeah.
Right. But I want to think about that for a second, because if I have $50,000, I can either use it as a down payment. Let's say that's my 20% on a $250,000 property.
Sure.
Or I can take that $50,000 and invest it in a 5% savings account. Okay. So we were talking earlier, and you said that the appreciation over time is 4% per year, long term for real estate. Why would I want 4% per year in real estate when I can get 5% in a savings account? Explain that to us.
That's an excellent question, Mark, and a lot of people don't see this. The $50,000 that you put in a high yield savings account that's earning 5%, it's 5% on your investment of $50,000 or your savings of $50,000 per year. In real estate, if you spent the $50,000 to buy a property that was $250,000, that 4% is not on the $50,000; it's on the entire $250,000.
Right.
So you get levered returns because it's real estate. That's the only asset class that you can do that with, where you can spend a little bit but earn the return on the whole thing.
And that's leverage.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we talk about when we talk about financial leverage.
Exactly.
You can use the bank's money.
Yep.
You put in 50,000, they put in 200,000.
Yep.
And you're getting the appreciation of the full 250.
That's right.
So over time, that's going to be a much bigger amount.
Sure.
Even when you factor out costs and expenses and things like that and debt service, you're still going to be in a much better situation than if you had just taken that 50,000 and put it in a 5% savings account.
Absolutely. Yeah, it outperforms because it's compounded too, right? In 5 years, it trumps anything that you could have done with a savings account or anything like that. So
yeah, a compounded $250,000 basis is a lot better than a compounded $50,000 basis.
That's right.
And that's not even getting into tax benefits, right? So depreciation, the tax benefits of owning real estate, the money you can write off that's interest on a loan, things like that. So there's a lot of ways that being a real estate investor is absolutely more advantageous than just about anything else, including being a more consistent investment.
Absolutely. We belong to a community, KW Wealth, and we showed up to an event, this was last year. And to get in the door, the plan was you got to show up with a net worth plan for whatever you wanted your life to look like and the amount of time that you wanted it to look like. And when you broke it down, it was as simple as buy one property a year. And if you did that consistently, it's not I'm paying taxes and buying a property. I eventually get to a point where I'm not paying taxes and I'm buying a property from paying the IRS.
Right.
So which would you rather have? Pay a fee to the IRS that you never see any benefit of, or buy an asset that can pay dividends long term?
Right, and minimize the amount of money that goes to the IRS in the first place.
That's right.
So we've sort of established real estate's a good investment.
Absolutely.
Right, and we've established that real estate agents are in a unique position because we're what the IRS qualifies as real estate professionals. We're working more than
750, I believe.
750 hours a year in real estate or real estate investing. So we are considered real estate professionals. So we can take advantage of things like cost segregation. So we should definitely be doing this. And I want to scream that from the rooftops for every person out there that's in real estate that isn't investing. But we have a whole industry of real estate agents that aren't even homeowners. They're not even buying the thing that they help other people buy. Yeah. Mostly because we're not great at saving money, right? As a group, we are known for basically spending what we get. and sometimes not even putting aside money for our taxes.
That's right.
It's not unusual for someone to get to the end of the year, owe money on taxes, and have zero in the bank because they've spent all the money and never put their tax money aside, never sent quarterly payments in.
Yep.
So it's a vicious cycle, right? So doing this kind of investing as a real estate agent is actually a great way to have a forced savings account and a forced retirement account, because most of us are not good at doing that on our own. But if you buy a property, let someone else manage it, and just watch it appreciate, then you have a forced savings account for your retirement.
Absolutely. And I want to sort of go back to agents that are not homeowners yet, right? Mm-hmm. The vast majority of properties in our market are going to pay somewhere around 2.5 to 3.5% commission. That's usually the amount of money that you need down to be able to go and buy your first property.
Yeah.
And if you pair that with the fact that you could go buy a duplex for 3.5% down, you could have a property, live there for less money that you're likely going to pay for in rent, and your mortgage is subsidized by a tenant on the other side.
And that is a great house hack, is what they call it, right?
It's a house hack, and if you're an agent, it's an agent hack as well.
Yeah.
Because, again, you didn't have to necessarily come up with a down payment.
Right.
If you compare it with some of the programs that our lenders have in terms of Dreammaker, for example, right? You get certain amount of money for closing costs just because it's a property in a specific area. You might actually be able to do that without a whole lot of money.
Yeah. Conventional is, for a first-time home buyer, can be as little as 3% down. Mm-hmm. 5% conventional is accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
And 3.5% is FHA.
Right.
So somewhere between 3 and 5%, everyone can get into a property, typically 3 to 3.5%. And since your commission is 3%,
yep.
If you can get the seller to pay closing costs as part of the deal, then you can come out of that with very little out of pocket. You have to have the money in your bank.
Sure.
But then you can reimburse it with your commission. So that's a great way to invest. One of the things I'm passionate about, though, is agents doing this so that they can teach it to their clients, right? Because I think most real estate agents are comfortable helping a home buyer or home seller, but not every agent is comfortable working with investors. You work with a lot of investors. Tell me a little bit about why you think that is.
So I go back to pre-real estate, right? I'm still working at Verizon, and my journey started in about 2015, 2016 when I got to a senior leadership level at a store. And I said, I'm earning a decent amount of money, but I was that guy who was not investing any money, right? I was blowing all of it. And I had just met my now wife, and I'm like, I should probably mature a little bit and start thinking about investing in something. Actually, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first book I picked up that completely changed that mindset. And I said, let me go research how to invest in real estate. And I can go down a rabbit hole of whatever it is that I want to know about. And it took about a year to really understand, okay, this is exactly what I should do. So I was going to use my income to invest in real estate. Mm-hmm. Things happen. I said, you know what? I no longer want to continue with Verizon. So the next best avenue was real estate. The only thing I knew when I got into the business was, how do I run numbers? So my client became the investor, right? I didn't know about paint and countertops and all the other things that you have to know about if you're helping a general consumer buy a luxury property or something like that, right? So my education came from reading books, listening to podcasts, and talking to people that had already invested and done things that I had not yet done.
That's huge.
Get around people that are doing things that you want to do, right? There's a saying in life, like, you're reaching for your mentor, right?
Right.
That's effectively what I did to learn real estate. And then I surrounded myself with agents when I became an agent to understand how they're doing things successfully in the business. You pair the two together, I became an investor-friendly agent.
Gotcha. So who are these investors? What are they doing?
So the vast majority of them are successful professionals that have had a career for 10, 15 years, and they have usually a pretty nice 401k that they've built up just by saving money, right? And so that's given them a return, and most of them are diversifying from 401ks to oh, I should probably also own real estate, right?
Gotcha.
And so a lot of these folks, they're buying their first or second investment property, and they only know real estate from buying usually their first home.
Right.
That's effectively it.
Right.
So that's one demographic that buys investment properties. The other is first-time buyers that are thinking with an investor mindset.
Right.
That are saying, I'm buying my home and it's not going to be my forever home, which, by the way, if you're buying your first house, it's never going to be your forever home.
Right.
And they understand that it only takes 3.5% down. I should be paying a mortgage as opposed to rent, because if I ever sell it, it comes back to me.
Right.
And you have people that are buying for family planning, right? And I know we're going to get into some of those topics as well, but that's the average consumer. It's no different than you or I.
Yeah. And I think that's the misconception, that people that are investing in real estate, that's like their primary job, right? Like that's what they do for a living. They don't do anything else.
Sure.
And it's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Most of them have a job,
right?
Some other thing that they do to make their primary income. This is a way for them to grow their wealth.
That's right. That's
right.
The vast majority of people that are successful, they get to a point that I got to, right? 10 years in a career, they say, I don't want to be doing this for 30, 40 more years until I get to retirement age. I want to be able to have the option of not working and having the option of being retired, I use that loosely, to go do whatever it is that I'm passionate about. And that's why they're making the decision to invest in real estate, because, again, over time, your cash flow goes up because rents go up.
Right.
And you can then live off of the decisions you made early on.
Right.
Which is cash flow, appreciation, all the things.
And going back to time value of money, the sooner you start investing in real estate, the better off you are.
That's right.
Right. So when I see these young 20-somethings that are buying their first house hacking or buying their first investment property, it's awesome.
I love it.
Because when they're in their 50s and 60s, they're going to have so much financial freedom that their peers who didn't do that and just put money in a 401k, they don't.
Yeah. And you can't pull that money. I mean, I guess you can pull the money out, but you don't really get to benefit from that money until you're retired.
Right.
Right. And if you pull it out early, which there are options, you're going to pay taxes and you're going to pay a penalty. So whatever you saved up goes right out the window.
Right.
You know, and if you start investing at even, let's say, 25, you often don't have to wait that long to benefit from the wise decision you made to buy. Right. As long as market dynamics are healthy, which they have been for quite some time now, you can take the appreciation, put it into your next property, or you can take it and go invest it. Right. Go buy a beach house, a mountain home, whatever it is, because as you go through life, you're going to want different things, and that decision that you made when you were 25 is going to help fund all of those.
Awesome.
So
let's talk about the types of people who should be looking at investing. You mentioned house hackers already, first-time home buyers that have more of an investor mindset.
That's right.
And want to either buy a place with multiple bedrooms and let their roommates pay the mortgage, or they're looking at buying a multi-unit, a duplex, triplex, quadruplex for 3.5% down and letting the other 3 units, tenants pay the mortgage.
That's right.
Right. So that's one set. Who else should be looking at it? You mentioned family planning.
Yeah. So I have 2 young kids. They will both at some point need to go to college. And so I can save money now and hope that I am able to save enough to pay for whatever college is going to cost, which, by the way, it's already expensive.
It's very expensive.
In 15 years from now, it's going to be even more expensive, right? So one way of doing that is by saving the money, or I can just go buy a rental property. It doesn't have to cash flow, at least not for me, because I can sustain that property, right? 15 years from now, the math usually says real estate should be double what it is today.
Right.
It's every 10 years real estate should double, roughly. There's my college fund.
Yeah.
If I go buy 2 of those, I'm set for the actual cost of college. And by the way, Mark, here's the best thing. I don't have to sell the house to pay for college.
Right.
I can refinance, pull the cash out, pay for college. My kids, they don't have a college debt, right? Tuition debt.
Right.
And if I keep the property, it will continue doing everything that it needs to do. And the tenant at that point, whoever it is at that time, is going to continue paying the mortgage, because rents will always be more than mortgage.
Yeah. I just saw an article today, yesterday, I guess it was, saying that rent is accelerating at a rate outpacing wage growth, again.
Yeah.
So people's pay that they're bringing home isn't keeping up with rent.
That's right.
And there's always going to be people who want to rent. So why not be one of the people who makes money off of that?
Sure.
And let someone else pay the mortgage on your investment property.
Yeah.
Your point is really great with young people, like kids. If you're having a child, if you buy a property for that child, that could fund their college. But if they don't go to college, it can fund their, excursion across Europe. It can start their small business, right? Like 15, 20 years from now, college may not hold the prestige it still holds today. But it's giving someone their first nest egg to launch them into adult life. And it may be that it's their first home too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They could have a free first home that they then can start taking the appreciation on at that point.
Yeah.
So,
or all of the above.
Or all of the above, right.
Average price in Atlanta right now is somewhere around $450,000 for the first-time buyer, right? So let's assume you buy a $400,000 property. You're looking at $800,000 in 15 years. I mean, really in 10, but let's just say 15 for easy math there. That should be able to afford an excursion to Europe.
Yeah.
A pretty nice college tuition bill, your first home.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot that you can do. So that one decision compounds so much, and you have to start early for that. If you don't, then unfortunately time didn't do the thing that it needed to do.
Right. Well, and if you can imagine today, an 18-year-old having $800,000 at their disposal, overseen, of course, by their parents.
Sure.
So that they don't make really dumb decisions with it. But that's an amazing amount of equity and funds to be able to really do whatever they want. It's setting them up for success in life, right?
Yeah.
So that they can use that to launch a business, go to college, whatever it is they need to do, or at that point, they may be thinking about having kids.
Sure.
And that could be the nest egg that allows them to not have to work when they're having their first child.
That's right.
So it's just such a great idea. If I could scream one thing from the rooftop to people who are like childbearing age, it would be buy a house. Like just get a rental property when you find out you're pregnant. Yeah. Right?
I would actually even go one step further and say, if you are thinking about planning for kids, buy a house first.
Oh, people plan? Okay, sorry. I thought these things just happen.
Oh, yeah, If you buy it first, there's no going back. You've already bought it, right? You should be able to sustain it. If you have a kid, kids are expensive.
Right.
I have two of them. It costs a lot of money.
They do cost a lot of money.
And so the excuse then becomes, I have a child, daycare is expensive, diapers are expensive, formula is expensive. You might not be able to do it. So if you can put yourself in a position, you know what? I foresee myself having kids in the next 2 years. I'm just going to go ahead and buy a rental property right now, because at that point, let's say if it's 2 years from now, in 20 years, it's doubled, maybe tripled in value at the very least. And again, all of your kids' excursions and whatnot is taken care of. So,
and I've seen a lot of people that do this kind of investing put their loans on. They do a 15-year, not a 30-year, right? Which the rates are pretty comparable.
Sure.
And they're paying it down over 15 years. So literally, they own the property by the time the child is 18.
Yeah. And you can certainly do that. Again, difference of opinion. I would rather have the ability to have a lower payment than longer or a higher payment, right?
Right.
But know that you don't have to buy real estate over 30 years, which is, I think, the common understanding. It's always over 30. You can do a 10-year mortgage.
Yeah.
You can do a 5-year mortgage if you want to, right? Just your personal preference. But the longest you can do for most lenders right now is 30.
Typically, yeah.
And that's the lowest payment. You bring in the money to support all of the expenses you're going to have, and you save a couple $100 a month for potentially from cash flow.
Yeah. So someone having kids, that's a great investment opportunity for them. Agents out there, if you're not talking about your young, newly married couples that are looking at growing a family, if you're not talking to them about that opportunity, you're doing them a disservice. So talk to them about that. What other types of buyers and sellers out there should agents talk to as a prospective investor?
Your clients that have a child going to college, if they're going anywhere away from your house and they're going to need a dorm. Now, some freshman, years, you're required to be in a dorm. I get that, but go ahead and buy a property there, because at some point they're going to live in that house, and they're going to bring in roommates, their friends that they've made in college or people that went with them.
Right.
And now your mortgage is paid for by your kids' friends. That's another great savings, because room and board is not cheap. Right. So that's another way of hacking the system, which is, instead of paying for room and board, let me pay for a house that is essentially free or close to free, because I'm bringing in income elsewhere.
Right. Otherwise, you're just putting more money in the pocket of the university.
That's right.
Who probably has deeper pockets than you do.
That's right.
Right. I'm just going to guess at that.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else can we talk to in our client base or our PCSOI, our past clients and sphere of influence, about investing, really?
People that need to buy a place for their parents.
Okay.
So there are some great loan options that you can buy as a person buying for a parent, as an owner occupant, even though you're not going to live in that. You want to share some more details on that?
Yeah. So there's a conventional product out there that lets you put yourself on the loan when you're buying for your aging parent. And generally, it's to bring them closer to you.
That's right.
Because that way you're close to them to take care of them in their old age. But you can buy that at an owner-occupant rate, whereas without a product like that, if I already live in Atlanta, I can't buy a second primary residence in Atlanta. I have to buy it as an investment property, which means I need to put 20, 25% down.
Right.
You can get an owner-occupied rate and owner-occupied terms on this conventional loan to buy it for your parent to come move in and live in. So it's just a great way to own yet another home and do it for a parent, and to be able to take advantage of those owner-occupied terms.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another category that comes to mind.
Okay.
In addition to parents, right? Your clients that love going to the mountains, love going to the beach, anywhere that they love spending time in, would it be beneficial for them to own a secondary home there?
Right.
Because you can buy a vacation home or second home for 10% down.
Yeah.
It's still an investment. You can Airbnb it during the times that you're not there, so it sort of pays the bills, but you get to go have fun without having to pay for an additional hotel room, Airbnb, things like that.
Right.
I think that's an excellent use of 10% of the funds that it would take to be able to get there, because over time, whatever you pay hotels and Airbnb, it's not coming back.
Right.
Right.
That's
so
money thrown away.
Yep.
Just like rent. And the other nice thing, like you said, 10% down for a second home, right? And once you're in there, you can say, you know what, I want to put this in a rental program, and you can still block off the times each year you want to use it, and then just rent out all of the other weeks.
Yep.
Right. The other thing you can do with a second home like that, which you can also do with your primary residence, is take advantage of what they call the Augusta rule.
Yep.
And if you're self-employed, your business can rent your home or your second home from you, and you as a homeowner, up to a certain dollar amount, do not have to pay taxes on that income. And your business is writing it off as an expense. So it's a really interesting way to limit your tax liability on your income if you make a lot of money.
Absolutely. We'll go back to our disclosure. We're not tax professionals, okay? We're speaking from experience. In Augusta rule, Mark, why is it called that, number one?
Right.
And what does it help me do? Because there's one thing that I absolutely love about it.
Okay.
Right? So I'll let you explain what it is and why it's called that.
Yeah. So it started in Augusta, Georgia. And what's in Augusta, Georgia? The Masters.
That's right.
Right. So every year when the Masters comes to town, people rent their homes out because they make a whole lot of money for renting it out for less than 2 weeks.
Right.
Right. And they make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So there is now this rule that the IRS has blessed that says you can do that, and as long as you're not making, do you know the dollar amount? I think it's $14,000.
I don't remember the exact dollar.
Yeah, again, we're not tax professionals, but let's use $14,000 as an example. Whatever that limit is, if it's $14,000, then you can make that an income by renting it out. Now, as a business owner, if you were going to hold, let's say, an annual retreat, you would normally go to a third-party venue and you would rent a hotel room or a suite in a hotel or a conference room in a hotel room or a meeting room and hold that event in some sort of third-party space like that. You can alternatively do that in your rental home that you have, your second home in Augusta or wherever, and pay that $14,000. Your business pays that $14,000 to you as an individual, the homeowner.
Right.
So you as the homeowner is getting that, let's call it $14,000 free, and then the business is expensing that $14,000. So it would have been an expense no matter where they did it. So it comes off of the taxable income of the business. And you don't have to report it as income as a individual.
What I heard, Mark, is I made income disappear legally.
That is a really, really great way to look at it. Like, poof, it's gone.
It's gone. Because the business gets taxed on income. You as an individual get taxed on profit and all these different things. I paid an expense. Yes, that expense came to me, but I don't have to report that as income.
Right.
Up to that threshold that you talked about.
Right.
Because it's not reported, I'm not paying taxes on it.
Right.
If you're in the 20% tax bracket and it's $14,000 as the max, that's a decent chunk that you saved by not paying income taxes on
Absolutely.
that. You could do this in your primary. You could do this in your second home. You could do this in a rental property. The limit, I don't think there's a limit there. Again, please check.
Check with your tax advisor.
That's right. But my understanding is there's not a limit there.
Okay.
So the limit is 14 days per year for each property.
Okay.
Why wouldn't I do that in my primary and any other investment property that I want to do?
Yeah, you just have to be able to validate the amount that you're spending, right? Like if you can go to a comparable space in a hotel and get a quote on what it would cost to rent that space and to have food provided and all of that, then you can use that similar amount to do that at your venue.
That's right. That's right.
So that's another great thing for people that not only is like having a second home that's in a rental program a great idea, but you can one-up that and use the Augusta rule.
That's Wealth Building 301, right?
That's right, level 301. We'll get to that in chapter 3. So the other thing I've been thinking about recently is not every buyer out there works with investors. Not every buyer out there has first-time home buyers that are house hackers. But every buyer out there has a past client who's a homeowner. Whether it's a buyer or a seller, they have a past client out there who's a homeowner. Any homeowner, if they've been a homeowner for more than 2 or 3 years where they now feel comfortable owning a home and they're not freaked out by the possibility of having to fix a roof leak, things like that. They're comfortable knowing they have to manage expenses on their home. They're a great candidate for owning a second property. Because again, they've done it once. They've had time, 2 to 3 years probably since the last purchase, to build up their savings for a down payment, to get comfortable being a homeowner, and to get comfortable with like how often things go wrong. So any agent out there has people in their sphere of influence or past client group that is a potential investor. And we need to be helping people understand that they're a potential investor, because I think if you ask them to raise their hands, maybe 10% of your clients would say, yeah, I'd be interested in investing in real estate, because not everyone understands that they too can be a real estate investor.
Yeah. The barrier to entry to invest in real estate is not very high. If you already own a property, we talked about this earlier, 5% conventional, right? I sort of did this. I owned a property and we wanted to buy another one. I can put a tenant in place on the first one, which we were still living there. So all I really needed was a lease agreement, which we provided to the lender. And then we bought the second one with only 5% down. You can do that over and over and over until you sort of cap out per the lender. And that's a great way to continue buying without having to spend 20% down every single time.
Exactly.
Right. And if you've been in a home for 5 or 6 years, really 2 years in Atlanta, you've got significant equity to where you don't necessarily have to spend your saved money. You can just use the equity to purchase another property.
Right.
And here's the thing. Let's say someone comes to you, Mark, and says, I'm thinking about selling my house, Hersh. Can you help me with this? Right? The first question that a savvy investor-friendly agent would ask, can we keep your house? Which is counterintuitive because we get paid on the sales we make, right?
Right.
But if I truly want to be an advisor, I can say, can you hold on to the house as an investment property? Because that completely shifts you in their mind.
Right.
Now you've become an advisor, not just a real estate agent.
Looking for the next commission.
Exactly.
Right.
And if you get them onto understanding, oh, I can buy another one this way.
Right.
You've created several future sales instead of just that one sale.
Well, and especially for in this time where so many people own homes they bought between 2019, let's say, and then 2022, where they have really low interest rates.
Yeah.
Like, I think the conventional wisdom says, oh, these people have really low interest rates. They don't want to sell.
Yeah.
Well, that's an assumption you're making.
Sure.
And if you take the time to educate someone and say, because you have this really low rate on this property, you can cash flow this as a rental property if you keep it pretty nicely, which is not easy to do in Atlanta, usually because of interest rates.
Yeah.
Right? That's usually the factor that makes it hard to cash flow. So you can keep that property, have a really low interest rate on a cash flowing rental property, and buy your next home.
Yeah. And you said something that made me think about this. If you are going to cash flow, because you will cash flow a significant amount, right, at 2.5% to 3%, you might even qualify for a bigger house because of the cash flow that you're going to be bringing in. For example, if your mortgage payment is $1,800, which is pretty common for a $300,000 to $400,000 house with that interest rate at least, and you go buy something and you can rent your house out for $2,400-$2,500,
right,
which would be common for that size house, lender's going to take 75% of that and give you whatever that spread is from your expenses as cherry on top for additional qualification.
Right.
So run your numbers and see what that would look like, but it certainly won't hurt you, but it might even help you.
Yeah.
Which, why not?
Yeah. If you could add an extra $400 or $500 a month to your cash flow, your net income every month on top of your salary or whatever your other source of income are, then you could qualify for more.
Yeah.
Who else did we miss?
I think the biggest point that we want to make is everybody should be able to buy additional real estate. The question is, can you become the advisor to your clients or to your friends or family and have the conversations that they want to have, but don't know how to have and who to have it with?
And you may have this conversation today, and your client today doesn't have 20% down for their first rental property, right? But again, they might have it in equity.
Yep.
They might have it between them and their significant other.
Yep.
Or they may have to go on a savings plan to hit that goal. But if they understand that it's possible and you show them a pathway to it, then you've done more than be a realtor who helps them buy and sell homes. You are now a wealth consultant.
Yep.
You have helped them understand how to grow their personal wealth and given them a pathway to doing so. And that changes people's lives.
Absolutely. In MREI, Gary uses MREI for millionaire real estate investor. Gary calls it the inner circle. We should be in the inner circle as wealth consultants with the CPAs, with the financial advisors, because at the end of the day, that's what we do if you do the things that we're talking about. If you're consulting them on these things, you should be able to have those conversations and be the first phone call, just like a CPA would or just like their financial planner would.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. So first step for an agent who doesn't understand investments, what do they need to read, listen to, watch, whatever?
I say pick up a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad.
For sure.
That will help you change your mindset on it's not just working for money, but having money work for you. And that's exactly what investments are.
Right.
Get connected to, there are tons of different podcasts and YouTube networks out there that will teach you real estate and how to run numbers. Probably one of the largest ones out there is Bigger Pockets. Real Estate Rockstars, right, is another. But no matter where you go, if you're interested in learning real estate, you can find it, whether it's social media, it's, YouTube, books, podcasts, all
Instagram, TikTok.
Yeah.
Like there's actually a lot of really good information out there. I would just say if you're getting it off of social media or YouTube, just do your homework and verify it.
Yeah.
Like don't just trust that everything is, just like every book you read, trust but verify.
Yeah.
Make sure that you understand that person understands what they're talking about and that it's a credible source.
That's right.
Right. But reading Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great mindset shift for people. There's another book that Robert Kiyosaki wrote called Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yeah.
Which is another one I think, especially if you're self-employed agents, read Cash Flow Quadrant for sure, because it's going to talk to you about the journey from the mindset of an employee to a self-employed person to a business owner to an investor.
Yep.
Right? Because there's a mindset shift in every step of that journey. So educate yourself, learn this stuff, and if you don't have an agent near you that can walk you through how to calculate a cap rate, how to calculate an internal rate of return, how to see if a property cash flows, how do you evaluate a property to see if it's a good rental property, then get around one.
Yeah.
And learn, ask questions. So educate yourself, get really good at being an investor so that you can do it yourself. Secondly, start having these conversations, right?
Yep.
Start having these conversations with everyone in your sphere. All of your past clients, all of your sphere. If it were me, I'd be holding seminars, educating people on becoming a first-time investor in real estate.
Yeah.
We hold first-time homebuyer seminars all the time. How many people are out there holding how to transition from homeowner to investor?
Yeah.
And that's a wealth building conversation.
Absolutely.
Building your wealth through real estate is a seminar every agent should be hosting so that they can be educating as many people as possible at once about the opportunities for investing in real estate, and that almost every person out there is a potential investor. They just need a path.
Yeah.
And some people's path is shorter than others.
Sure. They need a path and someone to walk them down the path. So become the person that can help them do that, because that's how you retain clients for life.
You had a story the other day when we were talking about, maybe it was just a friend, someone had come to you and all excited because they paid off their mortgage. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, actually longer than that, 2.5 years ago, they refinanced their mortgage for 2.6 something percent. And I connected with my lender and I said, hey, right now is the time to refinance. Just go do it. And they did it. I think they had about 50% or so left on it. So they said, hey, I'll just do this over the next 30. A year ago, we're at a wedding together, and he is super excited to tell me I paid off my mortgage. And I'm like, but you refinanced, yeah, at 2.6%.
Right.
He's like, yeah, but I just wanted to have the payment gone. And I completely understand.
Emotionally.
Yeah, emotionally, like not having the debt.
Right.
But financially, that is a horrible decision.
Right.
Right? 2.6%, inflation is 3%. So that means you only saved 2.6% per month. Your money devalued.
Right.
Right?
And where else can you go today to borrow money at 2.6%?
Yeah.
Right? To invest in other things.
Here's a scenario. If you were in that situation, or if you are in that situation, and you have a mortgage at 2.5 to 3%, the government is effectively paying you to go use that money. Because again, devalue versus what you're using it for, and you're doing it to amplify your assets and the income that you have by going to buy more real estate.
Right. If you're not advising your clients on this stuff, like they need to understand that like paying off your mortgage sounds like a really good idea. It's not always a good idea.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not always a smart business move.
Yeah.
So know that people are out there and they don't know this stuff, and they're relying on us to teach them.
There's a stat, Mark, now that you say that, it reminds me about 40% of people out there right now do not have a mortgage.
Zero mortgage.
Zero mortgage. They live in paid off houses, right? That is an untapped well of people that don't have the knowledge or don't have enough knowledge to go act upon that.
Right.
because that money is not helping you build wealth. And maybe you don't want to. That's totally fine, right? But if you're in the mindset of, I want to continue playing the wealth building game, you've got money sitting there, right? Show them how they can unlock that by going to seminars and things like that.
I think what we need to understand is there are going to be a lot of people who are like, no, I'm conservative. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's fine if they're making an informed decision.
Yeah.
Right? If we are educating people and they are hearing the information, understanding it, and still choose not to do it, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Like, then that's them exercising their personal choice based on their risk tolerance, their future plans, all of that. Great. But if we're not taking the time to educate them that these are options, then again, I personally feel like we're doing them a disservice because it's our job to educate them.
Yeah.
We are people who help other people make really good real estate decisions.
Yeah.
And if we're not using our information for good, certainly don't want to be using it for evil.
Sure.
But just not using it isn't helpful. Like, we have to use that knowledge to educate others so that people can act on the information.
Yeah. If you start doing this and you become the advisor that your clients need, again, you're going to have a client for life, and they're going to refer people. So not only can you have a investment focused business, but you can also have the retail business because they're going to continue buying their primaries and selling their primaries, right? So if you're an agent listening to this, just know that this is the path that is going to get you more clients by understanding investments.
It'll get you more deals for sure, right?
Yeah.
More transactions, because you're taking people who aren't thinking about buying real estate and helping them understand why they might want to buy real estate and how it's going to help their long-term financial growth. And it's deepening your relationship because you are becoming that wealth advisor, that person that helps take them from, I just bought my first home and now I understand how to be a homeowner, to now I know how to leverage what little money I have to invest along with the bank's money to build my own wealth.
That's right.
Well, Hersh, I think that's all the time we have for today. Last thoughts, parting thoughts?
If you're an agent, start learning how to help people build wealth, because that will ultimately help you build wealth.
Right. And not only through the investment in their primary residence.
Yeah. And if you're not an agent and you're going down the journey of learning how to invest in real estate, get around someone that can help you so you can be on the wealth building journey.
Absolutely. All right. The market has spoken. This is Mark Jones.
And I'm Hersh.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.